Thank you very much for tuning in again. On today's episode, we're gonna carry on with part 2 of The Missing Scientists. Tonight, we're gonna do a deep dive on the case and the Ufologists Thread. The list doesn't come from a single place. It builds over time, across sources, across discussions, and it keeps growing.
Each of these victims had high or top level security clearance at specific national research facilities, such as the Air Force Research Lab, Los Alamos, and more, NASA. In other words, more than one victim can be linked to a single facility and to each other.
Anthony Chavez, reported missing in 2025. Monica Reza, also reported missing. She was last seen smiling and waving, only 30 feet behind her hiking group, before vanishing instantly.
Even if you're a UFO skeptic, it's hard not to be curious about another strange aspect of this case. A former colleague of General McCasland's, who also disappeared, also under strange circumstances, last summer. Is it all a coincidence?
Walking with her friend turns around and talks to her, and then walks a little further, turns around to say something again, and she's gone. Just gone.
A particular note, I think, is Reza's work with what's called memory metal. This memory metal is believed by many people to be a direct descendant of material that was recovered at the Roswell crash and delivered to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That information is not in dispute, that whatever was recovered from Roswell was delivered to Wright-Patterson.
She vanished off the face of the earth about 9 months ago, last seen hiking in the Los Angeles forest with a companion. By all accounts, everything seemed normal that day. She was about 30 feet behind that person she was hiking with, smiling and waving. He turned around. Next thing you know, she was just completely gone. Rescue teams spent days looking for her, but actually never recovered her body. But what's so interesting about this story, Elizabeth, is that she is essentially connected with General McCasland right here in New Mexico.
Melissa Casias, last seen walking along a highway. Her belongings left behind. Her phone reset. On May 28th, Melissa Casias' remains were found by a hiker on Carson National Forest. Next to her, there was a gun, and they haven't confirmed the cause of death, but there's a bullet wound in her head. Stephen Garcia left his home on foot, leaving behind his car, his wallet, and his phone. William Neal McCasland, missing since February 2026.
Forward that Mr. McCasland was disoriented, confused. Arguably, he would still be the most intelligent person in the room that any of us would be in. Highly intelligent, highly capable, but that information was given to us early on, and out of an abundance of caution, we escalated to a silver alert.
Now, before retiring, General McCasland oversaw a highly classified program linked to UFO research, and many are wondering if that secretive work, past and researching UFOs, could have made him a target somehow.
At the end of February, he was last seen chatting with a repairman inside of his house. His wife left for a doctor's appointment at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and then by noon, he was completely gone. His wife reporting him missing after that. So obviously this is an ongoing story with search and rescue efforts still happening here on the mountains. We're going to continue to cover it for you.
His personal items left behind. In a 911 call, his wife stated that she believed he had planned not to be found.
It's interesting that the mainstream media are slowly waking up to the fact that it's a serious story if a major general, with the knowledge that Major General Neil McCasland has in his head from 38 years in the US Air Force, why on earth before now this hasn't been an issue in the mainstream media defies explanation. frankly. We know from the wife, Susan, that she issued a statement, and she has said categorically that he didn't take his phone and he didn't take his watch, which suggests perhaps he didn't want to be tracked. The level of public interest in the disappearance of the general is off the scale. His disappearance is a grave national security concern. It really is. This is a man who was at the top of the Pentagon. He supervised special access programs for the Defense Department. He ran the Air Force research laboratories and was privy, right up to 2013 when he left the service, he was privy to quite extraordinary weapons, aerospace development.
He was responsible for managing the funding of 80% of the military's SAP programs. Those are special access programs, which, as the name denotes, are access controls of some of the government's most highly classified information. And of course, his work at Wright-Patterson with regard to the Air Force's research and development program, I think that's like a $2 billion program he oversaw. So he's literally a walking hard drive of highly classified information. So the FBI is going to be very, very interested in determining what exactly has happened to him.
Then there are the deaths. Nuno Loureiro, Karl Grillmair, Amy Eskridge.
The ultra-terrestrials, I think, have you heard of the P-52s and the P-47s? Do you know what that is? They're us from the future. They're from here. They are you. They are me. They're from here, from the future. P-47 is present plus 47,000 years. P-52 is present plus 52,000 years. And basically there's a calamity, apocalypse scenario in the near future. It wipes out most of like everything, man. And there's the ones that go underground and survive, right? And then there's the ones that somehow stay on the surface and miraculously don't die.
Jeremy, I just sent you over basically a whole conversation I had with these Space Falcon camp flyers. They're doing the Falcon space program, and they're looking for kids between ages 8 and 11 to send into the future on the USC Hawkeye.
I'm a biology chemist, biotechnologist from Huntsville, Alabama. And I have a history of electrical and mechanical engineering, and I worked at MRDEC. I worked for the U.S. Army. I was in the Weapons Sciences Directorate, but then I transferred to biotech.
Amy Eskridge, as you all know by now, brilliant scientist. Frank Milburn joining us, former British intelligence officer who knew Amy very well, and he spoke with Amy just hours before her death.
She was interested, yes, in anti-gravity. She was interested in free energy, which is the extraction of energy from the ether, in potentially unlimited amounts, which would obviously change the whole way that we have to produce energy on Earth, and potentially would help every poor country in the world. But it could also be very dangerously used as a weapon. What she was actually working on when she was attacked with the directed energy weapon that's been that was especially documented with videos, testimony, and other witness there. She was actually working for Homeland Security on a project which would defend US subways across the continental United States from chemical, bio, and radiological attack. Well, the immediate text, sort of in the month before her death, was, if I committed suicide, I didn't. If you hear that, if I overdosed, I didn't. If you hear that I killed myself or anybody else, I didn't. And this was text to myself. There were other texts to other people, co-workers.
One with Amy, I knew Amy very well, and her parents, Kathy and Richard, they made a statement that scientists die, and not to make too much of this. That's a tragic event, but
initially I looked at, I was thinking, like the GRU, Russian military intelligence, or the Chinese. But you have to understand, this is an actor actors over a period of like maybe 3 years or even more were harassing her over a period of time. Vehicle surveillance, directed energy weapon attacks, social engineering, break-ins, hacking. That's a lot of moving parts.
Hold on. Frank, you got me drinking out of the fire hydrant. That's too much too fast. Okay, what is that?
That was when she was working literally on that project for Homeland Security, and she was, I think, about 6 stories up, but they got hit with a directed energy weapon. There was something directed specifically at her hands. There's another scientist with her in the background, and you can hear him say it's a directed energy weapon. So there's 2 witnesses there, 2 scientists who are expert witnesses and able to describe exactly what is happening to them. She's saying in this case, it's basically they're trying to build a 3-dimensional picture of her hands to see what she's typing on, because she's removed the Wi-Fi card from the computer so that it can't be hacked, because she suffered so many hacking attempts. I mean, literally every other day, she was doing a completely clean install on all her computers and her phones.
Michael Hicks, Frank Maywold, all connected in some way to advanced scientific environments. Individually, each case has context, explanations, but together, they begin to feel connected. And the pattern doesn't stop with scientists. It extends into another group. People who weren't studying the unknown, but speaking about it. Over time, several figures in UFO research and disclosure circles have also been drawn into similar discussions. Karl Wolfe, who claims he has seen images of structures on the far side of the moon, a claim that, if true, would challenge what we think we know about it. Spiers, whose death in 2016 was officially attributed to natural causes, though often described online as unusual due to the circumstances surrounding his final days. Matthew James Sullivan, included in some lists reflecting how the pattern continues to expand, even when the details remain limited.
Matthew Sullivan was scheduled to testify in a whistleblower hearing that was taking place on Capitol Hill. Think about it, a hearing for whistleblowers about UFOs and UFO intelligence within the military. The circumstances of his death are being questioned by many close to him.
David Wilcock, frequently discussed in online communities, with attention drawn to the message attributed to him shortly before his reported death.
Every day that I have on Earth is a gift and a blessing, and I'm very grateful for that, because frankly, people are disappearing, scientists are going missing. Now they're saying they're going to investigate this. The president himself is saying they're going to look into this and see if anything's going on. It's a little bit scary. I got to say, it's a little bit scary.
Statements like these are often interpreted in different ways. And then there's Nick Pope, a well-known figure in UFO research who passed away on April 6, 2026. From stage 4 esophageal cancer that had spread to his liver, something he had publicly disclosed earlier that year. His case stands in contrast to others, a clear documented cause, a reminder that not every name in this space fits the same narrative.
And that's part of the problem too within this so-called UFO community. There's a lot of fighting and everybody wants to, and I get it. Somebody's selling t-shirts and baseball caps, and they got a book tour and they want to do a movie and all this stuff, and I think there's plenty for everybody. I'm not worried about all that. I'm not caught up in all that. I just want to get the truth out. I think transparency is something I've been a big part of for a long time.
First question is Mr. Knapp. I recently introduced the UAP Whistleblower Protection Act to help provide whistleblower protection to federal personnel for disclosing the use of federal taxpayer funds to investigate UFOs. I still don't want to say UAPs. How can Congress further increase whistleblower protections?
I think you got to unleash the dogs and go track down the money and where it goes, because a lot of this stuff has been moved out of government, been given to private contractors who stashed it away. They've had it for so long that there's nobody left inside government, or very few, who know where it is.
And they do that to keep us from FOIA, correct?
Yeah, it's to keep it from FOIA. And I think that the contractors who've had this stuff for a very long time set their own standards about who is allowed to know what. And it's a very small group that ever cracks that.
And yet, when these individuals are placed alongside the scientists,
I don't know if it's about little green men or flying saucers. I just know we're spending tens of millions of dollars on something. I think we should know what the heck we're spending that money on. Do I think it's the Chinese or the Russians? And I go back over this. If it was the Russians, they wouldn't be bogged down in Ukraine. If it's the Chinese, they'd own us. Some would argue, as I've stated, they own us already. And would it be the Americans? Why in the world would we risk a $500 million high-tech aircraft or a fleet of aircrafts to be around these things? I've talked to folks that are at the highest levels, and they will tell you that they've asked and they've indicated that it is definitely not them. The material or whatever it's out there that we have, we don't really have it anymore because they farmed it out to these corporations, and these corporations are not FOIA-able. Freedom of Information Act is for the people back home. It's when I can say, hey, FBI, release this stuff. I want to see this stuff. And under FOIA, allegedly, they're supposed to release it. But say a Ford Motor Company had it, they wouldn't have to release it. And I feel like that's what's happened to a lot of it. And a lot of the stuff that I think that we have is probably the people that are dissecting it or whatever they're doing with it probably don't realize exactly what it is or where it came from. They might have an idea, but people with the direct knowledge are mostly gone. During the Second World War, I've met people. I met this one guy I met one time. I was out knocking on doors, and I asked him what branch he was in because he was putting his American flag out, and he was kind of sheepish about it. And he said, well, I worked at Oak Ridge. He said, my wife worked there too. I never knew what she did, and she never knew what I did till after the war. And it's compartmentalized, and
that makes it harder.
It makes it very hard. And then when those people die, direct knowledge goes. I mean, Roswell, everybody talks about Roswell, and there's a couple other incidents that occurred.
Yeah, well, look, this is not unusual for me. I've kind of become the clearinghouse for people that have sensitive information regarding UAP. And sometimes when people pass away, you know, their family members do reach out to me. It's really about journalism. It's about First Amendment. It's about freedom of speech.
Okay.
And in those documents was absolute proof that the government has independently been studying the UFO phenomenon for decades, looking at and covering up the fact that they're looking at the origin of these craft and the pilots themselves.
I'm being told that by our control room that we are completely out of time.
The pattern feels larger, more complete.
But, you know, we've had so many obstacles on this thing. When Luna and Matt Gaetz and I went down to Florida, to Eglin, you know, they turned us away. We were told we were going to see. There were some pilots that wanted to talk to us, and they briefed us on some stuff that was pretty incredible that had nothing to do with this subject. And Matt told them, said, you know, we're going to subpoena you all. And I mentioned to him, I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us the answer is 1.75, and the real answer is 1.74, and you're going to be held in contempt. And he got on the phone, and whoever Big Air Force is, because they came back in about an hour, they took us upstairs and gave us a nice fruit tray at taxpayers' expense. And then they brought the pilots in, and it was very interesting. And I mean that just sort of that kind of lit the fuse for a lot of members when that deal went down. I'm very frustrated with it too. I don't know that we'll ever get to the bottom of it unless Trump does it, or unless one of these scientists walks out of one of these private labs and says, what's going on?
But I think Luna's very smart to exercise that process and, you know, threaten subpoenaing those records and getting those in receipt of Congress. And I think as the administration starts releasing things, I would recommend, you know, professionally to Congress to start using the power of subpoena. They already have the list of some of these hostile folks that ran those programs.
Even if the connections remain uncertain.
Mr. Herrera, Michael, last year you issued a warning to other whistleblowers. You briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee, you've also briefed the Pentagon. Do you still have warnings for other whistleblowers who may come forward, or have you seen more cooperation now that the president has said we want more transparency?
I'm still always cautious to let people to understand that there is a big risk when coming forward to an extent. Now, when we have legislation that was passed through the National Defense Authorization Act, that allows certain precautions to be taken for people's careers. But when it comes to personal safety, it's a lot different. So they're coming into the public world, if you want to call it that, with no stability. So again, they're losing their career, they're losing their clearances, they're losing everything, and including their pensions and their benefits.
And also, they're often threatened with what are called wet works or targeted killings. So
working towards people's personal safety is the biggest concern as long as they're protected.
The Bob Lazar episode of this podcast is the most viewed episode that I've ever had on YouTube.
You got to figure he's the one that escaped from all of it and is still alive. And somehow he got out and was able to do it before they could silence him. They tried to discredit him, said he didn't work there, and then I think he produced check stubs even.
Well, not just that. They tried to pretend that he never worked at Los Alamos Labs, but he was on the employee roster. There was a lot of stuff going on where they tried to discredit him, but he went public because he was afraid they were going to kill him.
We hope you liked tonight's episode. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the strange and the unexplained. Until next time, keep questioning everything.